Okay, seeing that people have started to join, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Taryn Sebula, and I'm a Senior Manager of Member Engagement here at the Toronto Region Board of Trade. Today, we have a very fascinating workshop planned for you all. I'm personally really looking forward to it. GeoSource, one of our valued members here at the board, has prepared a presentation on the relevant topic of building our clean economy from the ground up, specifically discussing the importance of skilled trades and construction workers in facilitating a net zero carbon transition. So now I'll hand it off to Darren Hagan, who will be moderating the event.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Taryn. Welcome, everybody. It's great to see so many people coming out to discuss this awesome topic today. Thank you for joining us. I know it's going to be an engaging and really informative session. So as Taryn said, my name is Darren. I know it's a little confusing, they rhyme. I'm a development manager at GeoSource Energy, and I will be acting as our moderator today. In terms of the format, we're hoping to start with a bit of a panel discussion for about 30 minutes, and then we're going to open it up to audience questions at the end. So please feel free to drop questions or comments in the chat box throughout the session, and then we will do our best to answer them all before the end of the session. Before we dive in, though, I would like to start with a land acknowledgement. I believe it's really important that we learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers, and take meaningful steps towards reconciliation. So I'm calling in today from the city of Hamilton, which is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources surrounding the Great Lakes. Furthermore, this land is covered by the Between the Great Lakes Purchase of 1972, which is otherwise known as a Treaty Number 3, between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. So with that being said, I would like to invite everybody to visit the link in the chat to learn a little bit more about the history of the land you currently call home. Now, we are here today to discuss the role of the trades in literally building the clean economy. So before we start the panel discussion, I just wanted to provide some context behind why we at GeoSource think this conversation is so necessary. So according to EcoCanada, Canada's building sector workforce does not have the widespread experience or skills to achieve energy efficiency goals. So this quote in and of itself was kind of the inspiration behind today's panel discussion. And we at GeoSource have a really unique perspective on this concept because for nearly 20 years, our company has specialized in geo-exchange system design, construction, and long-term operations and maintenance. So long before it was ever cool. So at GeoSource, we actually construct all of the systems that we design. We have the largest fleet of dedicated geo-exchange drill rigs in the province. So for those of you who may not be familiar, geo-exchange, which is otherwise known as geothermal or ground source heat pumps, is a low carbon method for heating and cooling buildings. And as such, it's projected to play a critical role in decarbonizing our building sector, which actually has made up about 57% of the City of Toronto's greenhouse gas emissions in 2019. Because of recent policy changes like the Toronto Green Standard and other municipal green development standards, we are seeing a significant increase in demand for our services. Ultimately, this is great news. Believe me, we are not complaining. But with so much construction slated to begin within the next few years, we are working around the clock, really, I promise, to ensure that enough people and equipment are available to get the job done. And I know that we are absolutely not the only ones. This is a very common problem and it exists across multiple industries and it's existed across multiple decades as well. So this is not new. But ultimately, relative to the incoming demand, it's further made worse, I would say, by this green transition, or further, compounded on by the green transition. Our skilled trades and construction capacity is really quite limited. So it's really important that we consider this in planning stages. We're still relatively early on in what I would consider this green economic transition. We're aiming to be net zero by 2050. We have 28 more years to do this, but it's really important that we set ourselves up for success today. So we've assembled the leading voices from across the country to guide this discussion in the hopes of surfacing these critical issues and prompt some meaningful change. So with that, I would like to stop talking and I would like to introduce our panelists today. So with us, we have Jenny Peters. She's the Senior Manager of Research at EcoCanada. Vince Schutt. He's the Partnership and Learning Advisor at as well as the Workforce 2030 Lead at the Canada Green Building Council, otherwise known as the CAGBC. Tara Clark, who is Partner and Chief Operating Officer at Building Up. And finally, Ryan Santos, our Director of HR over at GeoSource Energy. So rather than me reading off everybody's bios, I'd love for everyone to introduce themselves. And so perhaps we will start with you, Jenny. Maybe you could tell us a little bit about yourself and what kind of expertise you're bringing to our panel today.
Great, thanks, Darren. So as you said, I'm Senior Manager of Research at EcoCanada. EcoCanada is a workforce development organization. We're a not-for-profit. We do a lot of different types of supports for the environmental workforce across Canada. My aspect of support is through researching the workforce. So I spend most of my day looking at data, which is giving me information about what the environmental workforce looks like in terms of the size of the workforce, in terms of the composition of the workforce, which industries these workers are in, which job functions they're in, what skills they need, what educational backgrounds they come from, and so forth. So the objective of building the environmental workforce, especially in the skilled trades, is really close to my heart. It's part of the research projects that we're working on right now. So it's great to be part of the team here.
Darren, you're on mute.
So sorry. Thank you so much. Thanks, Jenny. It's really great to have you with us here today. Maybe now, Vince, I'll turn it over to you.
Hello, everybody. So I'm my key role that I'm really doing is the Workforce 2030 lead. Like that's my my main thing that I do, and Canada Green Building Council serves as the secretariat for this. And this is a coalition of organizations from the largest builders in the country to nonprofits, working at a municipal level, all with a goal of saying we need to look at the workforce elements. We need to develop workforce, because even on the previous few slides ago, there was this question about like how we're going to get there. Like, do we have the capacity? And ultimately, we have the reports, we have the data, kind of like what Jenny was saying, we are missing some of this. We're missing the wide scale, and that's what we're all coming together to do in the Workforce 2030 Coalition, say, if we want to build high performance buildings throughout this entire country, we need to have the workforce to be able to do it. So we have the skills, but we need to help those skills become more widespread so that we can have a lot of teams building these types of buildings. And that's a lot of what we're doing at Workforce 2030. So look forward to the rest of the conversation.
So do I, actually. Thanks so much, Vince. Yeah, I think this is going to be a really interesting discussion, as I think everybody here is actually part of the Workforce 2030 Coalition. I think we've all kind of interacted with Vince once or twice before this, if not more. Now moving on, maybe Tara, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, hi, I've actually, so I'll first start by saying sort of what Building Up is. We're pre-apprenticeship, we're a nonprofit, pre-apprenticeship, and social enterprise. So we sort of are that very entry level of workforce development. And we do work with Vince on some green skills training in our program and actually on our sites as well. So we sort of work with marginalized populations and provide them an entrance into the construction trades. We're about a 16-week program, but because of our social enterprise, we can stay working with folks as long as we need to. And we work with about 100 new people a year. So far, we've worked with about 500. And hoping to grow that and get more people into positions where they can, excel in the green trades and in the trades in general.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tara. I'm really excited for myself as well as everyone else to learn a little bit more about what Building Up is doing. And last but not least, maybe Ryan, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Super excited to be here. Yeah, I'm the Director of HR for GeoSource Energy. Just have to say that I work with a lot of passionate individuals on this team that has a strong passion towards making this a greener earth. And my responsibilities there from an HR perspective is support them with various tools to help us get there. I've had a lot of opportunity throughout my career in supporting trades in various capacities, mainly from the learning and development perspective. I worked in manufacturing, construction, also part-time HR professor at Sheridan College. So excited to be here and to have a great discussion today. Thank you for having me here. You're on mute, Eric.
Oh, all good? Apologies. It's really great to have everyone here. So maybe let's jump right into this panel discussion. I think it's probably a good idea that we start by, setting some context. I would say most of us are probably anecdotally familiar with the concept of, the skilled trades gap and workforce shortages. But, considering that we have an experienced researcher in our midst here, I think it would be really great to get some of your thoughts. As Vince said, we've had these reports for so long, and maybe it'd be really great to have kind of an overview, if you possibly can. I don't want to presume to, be able to summarize any of that in a couple of words, but I think maybe setting us off by giving us a look at, what exactly is happening with the current skilled trades gap, especially as it relates to these green spaces. Jenny, I'd love to hear your thoughts.
Sure, that's no problem at all. Well, we actually were fortunate to be contracted to do an analysis of the workforce for energy efficiency for buildings through some funding for NRCan just a couple of years ago. Anyone who's interested can find the report for free on our website. And what we discovered is that there are two main facets of shortages when it comes to the skilled trades or construction workforce in the energy efficiency for buildings space. One is simply that the skilled trades are not attracting people in the same way that they had been in the past. To a large extent, they're not viewed as green jobs. They're perceived as manual labor, and we know that that's not the case. They're viewed often as less skilled than other professions, which again is not the case. So one of our challenges is to simply attract people into that marketplace in order to replace and support the individuals who are going to be retiring soon, which is a big portion of the workforce. And then on top of that, we've got a need for a sort of a culture shift, which is related to what I was just talking about. The idea that a tradesperson comes to work, does their job, and then goes home without interacting with other individuals in the building process is dwindling in terms of the high performance buildings. So we're seeing more and more interdisciplinary work, more and more need for teamwork across disciplines, more and more need for a wider variety of skill sets, including personal and professional skills that may not have been quite as important before. So all of these things together lead to some challenges for us to make sure that we've got the adequate workforce for going forward and building these structures that we need.
You're on mute again.
Oh my goodness, I don't know why this is happening. Apologies, guys. Something that you said there, Jenny, really resonated with me about, making sure that we also have some sort of softer skills, some of that teamwork, some of that, you're not just here to do your trade piece. And I wonder, Tara, I know Building Up is a really comprehensive program. It's not just about coming in and learning some of the skills related to the trade space, but also some of those softer skills. I'd be interested to hear, some of what Building Up is doing to kind of support the growth of that kind of skill set.
So we definitely have networking skills and professional development skills baked into the program, but I would say the culture shift does need to happen more on the sites, because what we're preparing them for is a non-professional environment, but for them to remain professional in a non-professional environment. So we're teaching them resilience. We're teaching them how to handle a supervisor that yells at you and doesn't, never gives you positive feedback. We're teaching them how to handle a very rough culture, because that's a feedback we have from our alumni. We also have an alumni program. We stay in touch with all the people that have gone through our program, and their feedback is, sites are not the most warm and welcoming place to go. And so, yes, we are teaching professional development skills, but professional skills to manage an atmosphere that might not be so professional in nature. And a lot of people actually decide that even though the money's great, that it's just not worth not even the physical drain, but the emotional drain of how they feel leaving a day of work, right? When you work your butt off, you want someone to say, hey, good job. So it's just, or they're switching or they're moving to new companies where they're treated a little bit better.
So then would you say that there's still room left? I would obviously this doesn't fall under Building Up's purview, but in terms of educating and working with, some existing managers as well, and kind of trying to make the atmosphere on site a little bit better. I'd be interested to see if anybody on the panel has any thoughts about maybe how to go about making that better. I see, Vince, you have your hand up. So I'd be happy to turn it over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about cultural transformation for a long time. I think that there's a thread connecting what Jenny and Tara were both saying. So, I mean, there's the culture in the workplace environment. There's actually research to show that even having a single empathic person, where empathy is the thing being selected for. If we can interview builders for empathy, having even a single empathic person on the job site can greatly reduce the risk of sexual harassment on the job site. So that empathy is very, very important to have on the job site, and it changes the nature of the team, because that empathy, there's a social proof element that goes along with it. It's like, well, if one person's empathic, then all the other people there, you kind of are being, everyone realizes that you're being an a-hole. Really? If there's somebody in your presence that's empathic, it's like, what's the worst thing for your teacher to do? I'm disappointed in you. Oh, the boning. Oh, I guess I'll do my homework. It's like that. So getting that sort of nobody wants to, have the person that everybody respects the most to feel disappointed in them. And then the other thing that I was going to say about the culture is to what Jenny was saying. There's this gap that needs to be filled. It's sometimes hard to fill some of these positions. So we need to look at a culture of how we can actually show and will make these jobs appealing, but also show the appealing nature of the jobs, and doing a cultural transition around that. I mean, I'm just picturing the mass timber industry, for example. This is a new way to build, and just using effectively just good marketing to actually bring more people in. I'm picturing something like this. So we're all, maybe a little bit older than, youngsters just graduating high school. So, but we all played Tetris as a kid, or we've seen the game. So you can be like, hey, your parents' Tetris was this. And then it's like, your Tetris is this. And you show a picture of a mass timber building being built, and it's literally giant 1-ton Tetris pieces being craned into place. And how exciting is that? It's like, I get to play Tetris as my job. And if you can get that affect and just bring that sort of mindset into that work, you can potentially feel excited, and that maybe, draws more people into this type of workspace. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say.
That's actually a really good point. I was chatting actually with Ryan the other day about this at GeoSource, because, what we do is very niche, from a construction perspective. There's not a lot of people out there who drill geothermal. So in terms of how we can recruit people, we can't really rely on some of those existing channels of like trade school. There aren't a lot of programs out there. So Ryan, I think it would be really great here maybe to get your thoughts on how we are trying to build some positive recruitment in terms of highlighting some of the really unique and fun parts about working in, a green trade.
Yes, no, definitely. Yeah, it is, or it has been a challenge to definitely recruit in this space. We can't just, look at a specific, pool out there that is available to hire people to do the specific work that we do. And because of that, we're focusing on creating our own learning program, right? A curriculum that allows anyone to enter at many different stages within the organization and look at many different opportunities within that. So we've basically we have over 20 years of experience of drilling. However, we don't have a formalized call it program or learning program. That's what we're working on right now. That experience is being captured through our knowledge transfer programs, where we develop SOPs, and that allows us to know what the critical knowledge someone must be able to understand and what they must demonstrate. So with that, we're looking at all the various roles within the organization and building that curriculum, that overall curriculum accordingly. So that is some of the ways of how we're trying to close the gap in terms of what we need and getting people to perform those specific things that we need them to do in terms of our work. But that recruitment piece, right, is something that we need to look at a little more. We want to present an opportunity as this being a lifetime career with many various opportunities within the organization, not just a one-time job. So that's what we're looking at. And Vince, I loved what you talked about culture, and that's another thing that we're looking at, because so many different elements within a culture. The organization's culture is such a it's a critical piece in recruiting someone. So when we talk about learning and development, that's part of our culture. Health and safety, that's part of our culture. Empathy and all of that. So if we put all those pieces together, and our organization with that strong passion of making this or the world a greener place, right? Now everyone has that opportunity to play in this space with a career available at GeoSource to work in these various roles to help support that.
I would say on a separate note, not with our participants, but with our staff, a lot of people are leaving jobs that pay better because they want purpose in their life. And so highlighting that, like building a greener world is something that is a huge thing. Like we have people that have left really big jobs. Like I left a really big job to come and do this. And a lot of people, that transition is happening out of college, out of people that have been in the industry for a while. So I think somebody commented here on like a branding challenge, but I think branding the jobs as like, yes, there is a learning, like the culture, it's a good culture fit, but also the person's going to learn and grow and make a difference. Anyways, that's what we found when we're hiring people, that the people that are coming into our doors are the people that want to make a difference.
That's really great to hear. I wonder if, maybe Jenny or Vince could comment on this, but in terms of supporting employers in helping with branding of their jobs, helping employers with, building some of these training curriculum. I know that like in keeping people on that ladder is a big part of retaining your workforce, right? Making sure that they feel that there's somewhere to go. And I think that, as new companies and new specialties start to emerge, as we, wade our way into this transition, I think it'd be really interesting to see if there were funding opportunities available for small companies to start developing kind of this training ladder. So maybe probably that was a little vague, but maybe for Vince or Jenny, if to pick up on some of that to see if there's any funding.
Well, I guess I can go first. I mean, the first thing that I would just say is maybe just talk generally about the rapid upskilling program that's actually going on, and one of our partners, one of CAGBC's partners in this, is actually building up. So that's how Tara and I met. So when we look at like the training needs of people, it's like, okay, well, you know, there's a pre-apprenticeship training. So like, how do we take somebody from like unskilled to like getting into this skills pipeline? And so now we're thinking about like, okay, well, we're bringing them in. We need to make sure that they know how to use tools, how to, you know, be a good part of a workplace culture, like do all sorts of these things, but also how to like have some basic high performance building science, like you know, putting an air barrier behind an outlet that's been installed so that you aren't just like leaking air through the outlets and creating moisture problems inside of your walls. Like that's something that is actually a part of this training. Now, that needs to actually be manifest also like mid-career stream as well. Like, so people who are out there, you know, in the world, like teaching people on the job site. So like now we're actually going to be pursuing training in those areas. So we're starting to think about like building this whole pipeline of there's so many different training opportunities that are existing in the world. We don't need to build the entire pipe ourselves. All we really need to do is kind of like have one of those flexible pipes to connect like the different training opportunities that are already there and say, hey, a good point to go to at the end of this is this training over here. And at the end of that, a good training would be this over here. And at the end, how do we ultimately get, you know, all of our Red Seal like trade skilled professionals in this country who have built, you know, the living environment that we are all seeing. How do we help those people to say, okay, now we need to build better. We need to build more durable. And you need to actually help us like lead that because you're the most experienced builders in this country. So really, you know, getting those Red Seal tradespeople to be a major catalyst in this change. So I'm thinking like deep pipeline, you know, of unskilled all the way to high performance green building skilled labor and making that like a reality. And that's, we have a number of different programs on that. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, that is awesome. I really love that analogy of having kind of a flexible pipe to connect all of the dots. So I guess in your analogy, the Workforce 2030 Coalition would be acting as that kind of flexible pipe connecting some of these dots, or is there like another formal kind of process that you would see stepping in there? Because I know that there's just so many different training pathways and they take you to all different places. So I think it would be helpful to contextualize maybe what exactly the intention is for that.
Well, why don't I just, an example, like a story sometimes is worth a thousand words, or I don't know, I think it's a picture, but whatever. Let's do a story. So okay, so building operators. This is a single occupation. We know that we need building operators who are going to be able to operate equipment effectively and not like break these, you know, highly effective, highly programmed like control structures you know, that are going to like control the HVAC system in a building. So like if somebody is like a resident is complaining, it's too hot in my apartment, you know, are they going to manually close or build, like install some sort of like barrier over, you know, the ventilation that's going into that's basically going to compromise the whole system? You know, and so we've seen a lot of things like that. So how do we actually like transform the building operators and make sure that there's enough trained people? So we're building a program. This is also part of our Rapid Upskilling program in collaboration with one of our other partners, Labor Education Center, to bring people from highly unskilled labor and start into the market, because there's not a lot of players going from like hasn't graduated high school, just being able to like take a job as a building operator, like a superintendent, let's say. And then we don't need to be the experts of delivering like the deep, like in more intensive kind of building operator course, because there's a number of people already doing that. So we're going to connect them up to CET is probably the one we're looking at, but we're going to look at a few others. So that's the Canadian Institute for Energy Training, and they're a leader in like deep like building operator like operations, and like they have certifications that do this very thing. So we link them up to there, and they're probably going to need a year's worth of experience on the job before they're ready. And then when they emerge from CET, they're going to be able to have the skills to be leading a green building, to actually like use the equipment properly, to actually get like how that equipment is rating, because there's so many buildings out there that has green equipment, but it's actually being misoperated and it's not meeting its standards.
Yeah, that is a very familiar story to us at GeoSource. You know, when we install a geothermal system or geo-exchange system, sorry, it's very common. So part of what we're doing is working with the building operators to kind of educate, you know, piecemeal. But I think, you know, I've heard a lot about the importance of that kind of first stage of the pipeline, getting people from, you know, maybe haven't graduated high school, you know, teach them how to use tools, that first step. So I think, Tara, it's becoming very clear the importance of programs like Building Up. And I guess my next question would be, are you seeing significant demand? Like, do you have a lot of employers lined up to take on your recruits, or are you still seeing, you know, a number of barriers to getting those folks into the market?
So no, tons of demand. Like, we're having a hard time holding on to participants that are ready and want to go. I think that the struggle is more them wanting it working, making sure it works out for them. Like the union pathway, what I like about that, and what Ryan, what you were saying, is a clear pathway for employees of, hey, this is how you get to next level of pay. This is how you get to next level of this. So there's sort of a benefit to the union and those clear pathways of wages, but there's also, you know, the issue that they're not working with one company for ongoing basis. So I think the more employers can do that, have a clear pathway for folks of how they can not only, because in the apprenticeship pathway, right, like to what Vince is saying, there are clear not only like when you're getting pay raises, but also when you're supposed to go to school and what the training is you're supposed to get. So until things are sort of government done, if there's things that a company can do themselves or work with colleges around them to get that leveling up, we know our participants really want to not only grow their wages, but grow their skill sets. And so when they're going to a site and all they're doing is, you know, sweeping for 2 years, they get frustrated and they want to learn a little bit more. And so they go to class and they learn in class and they feel, okay, at least I didn't learn on site, but I learned in class. And then when they go back to site, they feel they're a little bit more knowledgeable. So the path might be slower, but at least there's those interventions where they're going to learn some skill. So I'd say, yeah, there's definitely demand. We're not struggling on finding placements. It's more on finding strong placements and strong placements where folks can, like, that's why we started we have an alumni program now, and it's focused on leveling up. So it's focused on working with our graduates who are in placements to help them advocate for themselves to get their next level and moving forward. And that's been going really, really well.
That's awesome. What kind of, you know, training sort of opportunities are offered through that leveling up program? Is it like more of an in-class, or is it kind of?
It's more of a one-on-one guidance counselor. Like if you imagine someone had their own guidance counselor they're talking to about, okay, like, have you recorded your hours? What trainings have you done? Can we get you registered? So we register them for the trainings they would need to do. We'll pay for their next level. So if they want to take their level 2 apprenticeship, we'll pay for it. We'll pay for the tools that they need. We remove the barriers from them moving forward in their career. And we also talk them through it and make sure that they, you know, sometimes they're afraid to tell their employer that, you know, I might need this time off to go to school. So we walk them through those conversations. And we just try to help them be an advocate for their own future is really the way I would view it. Plus remove a little bit of the financial barriers that are in place to get that next level. And it doesn't matter, like it's apprenticeship, non-apprenticeship, if it's for their career to move forward, like if it's this course that David's posting and that would help them move forward, we would help them find a way to pay for it.
Well, that's really awesome to hear. I'm excited to see, you know, how Building Up continues to grow. It's really great to hear. I think just keeping an eye on time, I want to make sure that we can address some of these questions in the chat box. And I'm noticing a really cool one here. In what ways can we advocate social and cultural change on work sites? Who is responsible and who could do the training in order to keep employees on these job sites? So I think it might be a good idea to start with, an employer perspective, and maybe wheel it over to Ryan to start this conversation. But I can imagine most people here would have a thought about how best to reach these goals. So Ryan, we'll start with you.
Yeah. So with that, I think it's most important to have every supervisor that's on site has to be a cultural steward of the organization, right? But they themselves have to have, they have to truly understand, the culture of the organization, the mission, the vision, and all of that. On sites or whatever organization, you're going to have various perspectives on, call it discipline, whether it be, different areas of educational discipline. That's what I'm referring to. But if everyone is on the same page of achieving that same goal, then when it comes to change, right? I think people will be more welcome to change, once people work together in towards of making those changes or understanding why changes need to be made to continuously move forward. So that's something that we're integrating within our organization, that continuous change aspect. When I talked about the learning program, even the way we do things, right, from the standard operating procedures that we create, well, because those SOPs have an impact on many different aspects of the organization, then people could continuously look at that and improve that SOP, allowing people that are coming into the organization to understand that their learning path is also continuously changing and adapting to the future because of the impact of technologies and the way we do things.
Yeah, I really like that thought, making sure that we're keeping that feedback loop tight, that they have access to not just, what they're doing on a day-to-day basis, but what space the company is playing in, what sort of space they're working with there. I think it might be interesting, actually, Jenny, to hear your thoughts. I know that Eco-Canada has done quite a bit of research on the labor market, and I'd wonder if there's kind of a place within this pipeline where we would see maybe folks dropping off. As Tara said, some people leave the job for numerous reasons, apologies. But I think looking at if we can pinpoint certain areas where maybe goals or ideas aren't being met on the employee side, if we can start to maybe focus on those spaces and start improving upon them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things that we found in our research is that it's a real challenge for small organizations to be able to offer the same sorts of supports to their workers as larger organizations are able to do. A one or a two man or woman organization the people are going to be playing so many different roles and wearing so many different hats that the opportunities to develop their staff may be overlooked as an important element in the job. So I think from our perspective, one of the ways that at least Eco-Canada has been trying to support these smaller organizations is by providing sort of HR services on behalf of and HR tools on behalf of these smaller organizations, so that you don't have to have an in-house HR person like Ryan in order to be able to provide some of the professional development and some of the emotional support and some of the recruitment aspects that we see these smaller organizations are challenged with. And then, of course, as Vince was saying, making them aware of the need for succession planning for developing their own workforce and making them aware of the opportunities available for training for their workforce as well. I think it's also useful if we can have a little bit of support in terms of financial support from various levels of government to help provide the funds that an individual organization or as Tara says, these individuals who are being placed, give them the opportunity to do that training off-site or away from the organization. So I think those are some of the ways that we could potentially help the smaller organizations at least.
Yeah, I think that really plays on some of the notes that Tara had mentioned earlier in terms of people are leaving their jobs looking for purpose, but a lot of the time people, those positions with purpose, they're often, smaller, more nimble organizations that have kind of, left this big organization to start doing something new. So I think having supports like that could be really helpful. Vince, I saw your hand go up there for a minute. Feel free.
Yeah, I just wanted to say real quick on the supervisor development thing. I think that what Ryan Santos was saying was very important here. And when we just look at the emotional intelligence of our supervisors that are going to lead to, like an effective or ineffective working environment, one of the most effective things that we can do to develop our or any of our staff's emotional intelligence is literally just journaled self-reflection. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there, like having a program of journaled self-reflection for supervisors can actually be like a major thing over the course of a few months that could really help develop someone's EI.
It's a really good point. Appreciate you bringing that up. I think I'm just scrolling through the chat really quickly to see if there is anything we could touch on before we move on. I'm thinking, given how much time we have left, I'd love to maybe, just for my own understanding even, to see if the panel has any thoughts on if there's any particular skill sets. I know that we've talked about making sure that we have interdisciplinary skills in the trade space, but in terms of, as we look forward, I know, we've talked a little bit about the just transition, previously. I'm sure lots of people are familiar with it, but we're going to see a bit of a shift from, certain skill sets to other skill sets, as we move towards electrification. So I wonder if there's any primary skill sets that we should be on the lookout for in terms of building some of these training pathways to make sure we're well set up. Maybe if we can start with, Jenny, maybe, or Vince, perhaps.
Sure. Yeah, no, I think one of the things that, of course, comes up, regardless of what occupation you're talking about these days, is the ability to use digital equipment or to work in a digital space. Whether it is an app that's going to help you communicate with your team across a large work site, or to track your hours, or to help invoice. Those sorts of apps are becoming pervasive throughout the economy, but more so even in the trade sector, where individuals are learning to install and operate and check more sophisticated equipment than they would have been employing in the past. So having that, I suppose, comfort and experience with a digital world is becoming more important in the skilled trade space than we would have seen in the past as well.
Absolutely. Go ahead, Ryan.
So just comment on that. So, as the industry or organizations continuously evolve, it's really important to ensure that individuals are resilient to change and all of that, but to really pay attention to the learning opportunities or programs that we have in place, right? People learn in different ways, and we have to understand that. And so if we want to support that change, we have to really understand, are people visual learners? Do they need to be coached one-on-one, or whatever it is? Do they need work instructions set up exactly where it's It's wherever they're doing that work. But another key component is to really understand the why. So going back to the organization's mission, vision, and the values, where we're trying to go, how we're going to get there. I mean, it has to be really understood by everyone, but not just understood, it has to be felt, right? And that will encourage people to continuously learn these new tools that we put in front of them. And yeah, so speaking from a smaller, call it a smaller employer. I mean, I used to work for one of the largest organizations in the world. Now I work with an organization that is smaller with the most passionate people that I've worked with ever. And I think as as long as you continuously have that conversation of what are we doing, what are we trying to do, and how can we make this a stronger workplace by having those conversations, and what do we need? We have to understand that it's people that we're it's a people business, right? You could have the best strategy in the world, but we have to ensure that we have those discussions to see how we're doing and what we need to do to continuously do or change to meet whatever objectives that we have or our path.
Absolutely. Vince, I see you've come off mute.
I came off mute just because so when we look at like the just transition angle, so we have people who have a lot of experience, let's say a lot of people in Alberta in the fossil fuel sector. There's a nonprofit called Iron and Oath that has done research that shows 90% of the people employed in that industry would be happy to be reskilled, retrained, and take up jobs in renewable energy. And one of the great jobs that they could get if they have drilling experience could be a job, well, oh, let's just help this person who already knows how to drill. Well, why can't they drill a geo-source well? And, so like that is just the type of thing that we need to be doing. Like people want to change, let's do that.
Absolutely. I have a lot of thoughts on the topic. Is that something that we've obviously thought about a lot? One of the biggest challenges I would say with the just transition in terms of transitioning fossil fuel workers to the clean economy is the geographic dependence, I would say, of the fossil fuel industry right now. There's a lot of workers out in Alberta and Saskatchewan. And the problem is there isn't a lot of strong policy to support transition in the way that it's happening here in the GTA. For example, geosource, we've drilled all over the country, but the majority of our jobs are in, the Golden Horseshoe, just because that's where all of the action is. And so yes, to reskilling, but also relocating potentially, or working with policymakers out in Alberta to start strengthening some of the policy there to really start incentivizing some of that transition. Obviously, that's a bit of a political debate as well. There's different components to that, but yeah, this is the just transition. I think in and of itself is you could have probably a 15-part webinar series about it, and you still would have so many questions by the end. Overall, it's a very complex concept. I'm reading through some of the comments and I'm seeing quite a long one, but it looks like it's kind of focusing a little bit more on government and, working together to kind of come up with, a coordinated plan, I would say. So I wonder if anybody on the panel has any thoughts about the different roles at different levels of government. We know that there's different abilities at municipal, provincial, and federal levels. But I wonder if there's any thoughts in terms of where each government level is best positioned to support, and perhaps maybe how they could work together a little bit more cohesively.
Well, I have one thought that pops into my mind. One of the programs that EcoCanada is able to offer are wage funding supports for new entrants into the marketplace, whether they're co-op students or young professionals. One of the challenges we face is that many or most of these programs require university or college education, as opposed to an apprenticeship or a skilled trade occupation. So we are looking to find out how we can encourage the federal government to promote wage funding opportunities for skilled trades, as well as the more university-bound employees as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I think for a long time, we focused pretty heavily on making sure that we have the that the university level understanding, and there's a lot of engineers, lots of architects out there that are ready to kind of meet the challenge, but it's really important that we start kind of working our way down the pipeline to make sure that we can actually do it. Just looking through some of these comments again, I realize that we're just under 10 minutes, so I wonder if maybe it'd be great to go around the panel to kind of get everyone's maybe final thoughts. I know that we've discussed a lot, we've kind of moved around quite a bit within the concept. And if there's something that you'd like to leave our attendees with, as a take home, a call to action, so to say, it would be really, really great to hear that. So maybe Tara, we could start with you.
I think the call to action or the thing to kind of leave with is that I do feel that there's a lot of funding and efforts being placed into kind of getting people to that first level of entrance ready. But that next leveling up, for instance, for us, like there are no funders that want to fund 4 years of support to help someone continue moving forward in their career. And I know that Ryan and Darren, you guys were kind of mentioning it like, hey, we want to build this curriculum. Is there any government supports that can go into helping us level our own employees up, or any consultations or things to help kind of people move along that pipeline? Because we have over 300 applicants apply for every single posting we have. These are all people that want to help, like they want to improve their lives. They want to do something. They come and they were with them for a little while, but then when they get to that next phase, it's a huge gap. Like what we can do, and when they get to that next level, what's expected, there's a huge gap. So if we can provide, maybe it's like a 2-year plan for them instead of like most programs are 16 weeks. That's a really short time to get someone ready from maybe not fully finishing high school, but having great math scores, right? Like we get some very intelligent people. We get lots of new to Canadians that come to us who are engineers in other countries. And there's a lot of support for that 16 weeks and not a lot of support after that. And I think it just takes a little bit longer to get them where you guys need them, or the employers need them. You need them about 1 to 2 years into their career skill set. And there's a lot of front end support, not a lot of that after that 4 months of support to get them to where the employer really, they become income producing versus burdensome. And that's just, right. I guess, what my thoughts are.
Would you say that that type of training would be most suited for like the college level, like a 2-year kind of program, or would that be something that employers or other organizations like Building Up would be handling? I know what we're doing is more of a one-on-one support system. And I know with other apprenticeship programs for private, so non-unionized apprenticeship programs, there are these group sponsorships where they're acting as the guidance counselor as well. And they're finding better success rates of moving people forward in their career paths by having those touch points of a mentor to ask questions to. So they have actually like a plumber mentor, not at their company, but as a mentor outside, where they touch base with quarterly, and they grow their own skills, and they work with a guidance counselor to set their class time. Because small employers just don't have the time and infrastructure in place to do that, to be the person coordinating your school, to do all the training, to do all the mentorship. They're going to site to get a job done. So I know that there's us doing the alumni program, and there's another organization who's doing this group sponsorship, and they've got about 200 apprentices, and they're finding great success with that as well. So I think even outside of the apprenticeships, these group sponsorships, these group mentor kind of folks, that their role is to help somebody move forward and work with employers. The employer is their client, and they're working with the employer to upskill their workforce, and it's of no cost to the employer. It's just a service the employer sort of receives. So I know that that's what's working in the apprenticeship world. It's very new, but it is working, and it is focused on getting folks through the apprenticeship system. I don't know if many of you know, but less than 50% of people that enter an apprenticeship complete it, which is, and most of them fall off in their first, and then electricians is lower, it's like 40%. And most of them fall off in their first 2 years for a wide variety of reasons. But that's a very, so we're getting the funnel in, we're getting people in the door, we're just not able to keep them moving up. I had no idea. That's really great feedback. I think it'll be really interesting to see what the next few years or so hold as far as, you know, funding certain pipeline opportunities goes. Maybe Ryan, if you'd like to kind of give us your final thoughts, your call to action.
Yeah, my final thoughts is any organization in a similar type position should have, you know, continuous communication with other organizations in a similar type position, you know, to really reflect, identify what exactly is the gap, and what is the best way that we could approach this? How could we further develop our program? And who do we need to partner with to help get our program put together? And how do we attract, you know, or help attract people into this space? So that just always continuous conversation and constant reevaluation, and finding that why. Why are we doing what we're doing? And let's work together to communicate what that why is.
Great. I think that's why opportunities like this to sit down and discuss, you know, is really great. So happy to hear that. Jenny, maybe your final thoughts?
Yeah, so I think one of the things that is playing off of what Ryan was just saying is the importance of collaboration across a wide variety of stakeholders. This is not an issue that can easily be dealt with one company at a time. This is one where we need to bring post-secondary educational institutions together with industry, together with government supports and programs, together with the industry associations and other non-governmental organizations like Terra's, to build an infrastructure, a framework that provides the supports that are needed in order to grow and maintain our workforce into the future. And it really is a takes a village sort of problem in terms of finding a solution for it.
Absolutely. And I guess speaking of villages, it'd be great to hear your last thoughts, Vince, you know, with the Workforce 2030 Coalition. That's, you know, exactly what you guys are working to do. So be happy to hear what your kind of call to action for our attendees would be.
I think my call to action would be to think about the way that we communicate about buildings. So the Workforce 2030 Coalition has a very, very wide sectoral view. And a lot of these people might have sometimes butt heads, but we're all under the same, you know, roof. So one thing that we can all agree on is that healthy, durable, quality buildings are really, really important. So when we think about how we're framing, you know, why we're here, let's be proud of building a healthy, durable building. And, you know, it doesn't have to be that the emissions are so low. Like if you have a healthy, durable building, the emissions will be low. So we can actually feel so much more excited about a healthy, durable building because like it's something that's going to be there for after we're all gone. And that's something that I think everyone in the Workforce 2030 Coalition can get behind. So that's the frame.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. I think oftentimes we can get lost in, you know, thinking that sustainability just means carbon emissions, reducing carbon emissions, but there's so much more, I think, to being sustainable, making sure that something is equitable and ethical and, you know, it's reliable. All of those things are a big part of making sure that you have a sustainable piece of infrastructure or a sustainable workforce. I see that we are right on the nose at 12 o'clock. I don't want to hold anyone up beyond. Yeah, I guess maybe open the floor, any final questions from our audience, be happy to take them. But otherwise, I just wanted to say a big thank you to our panelists for attending. This has been a blast. I've loved chatting with all of you. To our attendees for taking the time out of your day. We always love to have these conversations. And of course, we'd like to thank the Board of Trade for facilitating this discussion. Hopefully we can have many more like this in the future. Oh, and I see that we have one final slide up here. Just feel free to connect with us. Our website, all that stuff is up there. You should be able to find my email if you're interested in learning more about GeoSource, or if you have any questions about this session, feel free to reach out. But ultimately, thank you everyone so much. Oh, and I see Vince has just put in the Workforce 2030 website down there. So absolutely feel free to join that. I think everyone here, we all are all members or, supporters in some way of the Workforce 2030 Coalition. And I think that is probably one of our best chances to moving this forward. So I think with that, I will thank everyone. I hope you all have a great day.